I'm going to do this in 1/2 an hour. So you guys get to go home on time and we get to finish all of our business, which means I'm going to speed up a little bit. I don't have time to sort of ease into this. So I'm going to, and I want to start out at full speed and start with the poem that was just mentioned. So I'm going to ask you to clap for me again, because if you're in my sessions earlier today, you know that I'm chronically insecure and painfully self-conscious, and I'm one of those people that needs constant feedback, or I'll lose all confidence in myself and my work. If I look confident to you, it's a show. I do this for a living, and every time I stand up in front of an audience, I'm just petrified inside, and I absolutely need you to license me to perform for you. And you do that by your response. Now, the kind of response that a really insecure person needs is not polite, supportive, enthusiastic applause. To me, being as insecure as I am, I interpret that as rejection. So I'm going to say, ladies and gentlemen, Brad Bagert, and I want you to clap for me, if you please, in an undeserved way for me, but as though I was a rock star, and your favorite rock star, and you can't believe you're at the concert. Are you guys up for this? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Brad Bagert. Yes. I used to be a lawyer. I was in politics. I did jury trials. I did political speeches. You can't imagine what a joy it is, after living half my life in that world, to live in the world of education. The very worst people in the world of education are head and shoulders nicer and better than the very best people in the rest of the world. In the introduction, she mentioned the poem, The Special Ones. This is one of my favorite poems, too. There actually is a Mrs. Barker. She's a classroom teacher in Oklahoma. These are poems of voice in the classroom, poems in the voice of the classroom teacher. And this poem is quintessentially in Mrs. Barker's voice. I can feel myself channel her whenever I recite this poem, so here we go. Are we okay on the sound back there? Okay. The Special Ones. I watched him in the rearview mirror. Take two. The Special Ones. I watched him in the rearview mirror as he turned his siren off, alighted from his patrol car, and ticket book in hand, walked slowly toward me. That's when I recognized him. Virgil Jason Ryan. 16 years ago, I was Virgil's 4th grade teacher. The faculty called him Virg the Scourge and voted him most likely to go to the penitentiary. And now he's a policeman standing at the window of my car. He didn't get a word out of his mouth. Virgil Ryan, how dare you? I caught you cheating in math. I caught you lying about your homework. I caught you smoking in the bathroom. And if I hadn't cut you some slack, you'd still be in the 4th grade. And you were going to write me a ticket for rolling slowly through a stop sign. By now, I was out of the car, standing toe-to-toe, as I looked up at the bottom of his chin and lowered my voice to a snarl. Now you listen to me, Virg the Scourge, and you listen good. Mrs. Barker always does this. Close that ticket book and get back in your car, or I'll send you home with a note to your mother. Mrs. Barker, he said, and he smiled. I'm sorry, Mrs. Barker, I'll be good. I'll never do it again. Then he winked, gave me a hug, and laughed all the way back to his car. That Virgil, he was always one of the special ones. Thank you, sir. I just can't resist. Perfect attendance. There was a child, one of 27, and this child never once sat still, never once behaved nicely, and he never paid attention. He talked, teased, played, piddled, argued, and annoyed every creature with whom he came into contact, and he never missed a day of school. Andrew Barnaby Grimes, last year's Perfect Attendance Award recipient. Strep throat, Andrew came to school. 18 inches of snow. Andrew came to school. Thank you. A terrorist attack at the mall. Andrew came to school. And I'm not surprised. You see, Andrew's got a mama, and his mama ain't no fool. When you got a kid like Andrew, you make him go to school. So, all right. Lightning speed. I started writing poems for my own children so they could have poems to perform in the elocution programs at school. At that time, my passion was very, very simple. I wanted to write poems that people enjoyed, particularly children. I wanted to introduce children to poetry, not by having them study poetry, which is perfectly okay, and it's what poetry scholars do. Not by having them write poetry, which is perfectly okay, but that's what poets do. But by having them love poetry. And once children love poetry, then they study it and they write it. And somehow in our culture, we kind of miss that. We miss just becoming poetry lovers. We have a dysfunctional relationship in the English language between our English language speakers and our English poetry, because I believe we skip the step of having people become poetry lovers. How do you become a poetry lover? You find a poem you love. How do you find the poems you love? You recite them out loud with expression. So I decided I was going to write poems that children could perform, poems written in the voice of children, so that they could perform them and recite them out loud with expression, because purely, no intention to teach any fluency, no intention to do anything else, just to have them become poetry lovers. In this session, in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to tell you, I have the joy of describing where that's taken me. And hopefully, if everything works out the way the plan is, it's going to end up with something it's really nice. Not just today, but in the long run. So I started writing poems in the voice of children. So I'm doing a little quick medley of poems in the voice of children for different age children. So this is a poem, snack time, for kindergartners and pre-kindergartners. So I have to turn into a kindergartner. The name of my poem is Snack Time. Cake and cookies, cookies and cake. Now it's time to take a cake in my hand, cake in my tummy. Snack time is so yummy, yummy. Chips and pretzels, pretzels and feel so salty on my chips in my hand, chips in my tummy. Snack time is so yummy, yummy. Cheese and crackers, crackers and cheese. You can have some if you please. Cheese in my hand, cheese in my tummy. Snack time is so yummy, yummy. Such a mess. Filthy room. Get a dustpan, get a broom. Wipe the table, sweep the floor, get some snacks and eat some more. Older child, a happy ending. I didn't do much work this year. I admit it, I was lazy. I'm kind of sad to say it, but I drove my teacher crazy. I tried her patience every day. One day I made her cry. That's why I was a bit surprised at how she said goodbye. She got down on her knees. Her face was all aglow. She held my hands and whispered, "I'm so glad to see you go." Then she laughed out loud and hugged me. And I know it may sound sappy, but I felt all warm and fuzzy. I had made my teacher happy. The wiggle machine. My teacher gets angry and makes a commotion. Why can't you sit still? You're always in motion. I promise I'll stop. I promise I will, but then I'll look down and I'm not sitting still. I'm bobbing my head. I'm tapping my foot. My booty is bouncing. It will not stay put. My hands are like monkeys. They jump along. I try and I try, but I can't keep them down. I'm like a typhoon, a storm on the ocean. My body's a swirl of continuous motion. I'm really not rotten. I'm really not mean. I'm just a perpetual wiggle machine. I have to skip this. Middle school payback. These are parts. So that was like a third grader. This is a sixth grade girl. In this book, I created 11. This was a young adults choices winner. Excuse me. I've been in bed all week, so I'm kind of under the weather right now. And what you're seeing is a low energy version of what I do. It's really true. I've been married to the same woman for 45 years. You know, she is a saint. As a matter of fact, if I can, I read a love poem. These are a collection of love poems I wrote to my wife. We've been married 16 years at the time. I'll do 2 of these. I want you to hear my voice. Mother, father, and infant son. We have 4 children. Our 4th child was a 10-year caboose. I got to watch my wife hold our son in her arms, and my older eyes noticed something my younger eyes had missed. Mother, father, and infant son. I love you, my son, but I do not love you the way she does. She of the body that opened for your birth, the one that makes sweet milk for you, the arms that ring a universe of things when she lifts you from your crib. I love you, my son. I love you a lot, but I do not love you the way she does. Steel cables. It blossomed fragile as a morning glory, the love of our youth. How I loved you then. We rolled in love like bear cubs. Bold as the sun, I took you in my arms and charged into our life. And now the years have come and gone, each taking its own shape, like wild honeycomb, thick with the nectar of 1,000 joys and 1,000 tears. And sometimes it's hard to remember how I loved you then. And sometimes it's hard to say how I love you now. Like the steel cables they build bridges with that twist and swing through storms, I love you. Like the force that makes our trees sprout green buds each spring, I love you. Like breath in my lungs and blood in my veins and tears in my eyes, I love you. And I want little more from the second half of life than to be with you and love you tomorrow as I have loved you today. Thank you. So in this book, you can't just write in the voice of middle school kids because they're all different kind of kids, right? And girls are so different from boys. So I created 11 different poets and wrote in their voices as 6th graders, then their more mature voices as 7th graders, and their more mature voices as 8th graders. This took me like 10 years to write this book, and it was a real work. The opening poem is a poem in the voice of Christina Curtis as a 6th grade girl. I'll have to turn into a 6th grade girl, so here we go. Whatever. My name is Christina Curtis. I'm a 6th grader, and I have written a poem for the 6th grade boys. And the purpose of this poem is to let you boys know exactly how we girls feel about you. The name of this poem is Middle School Payback. You boys are so immature. The things we girls put up with, the things we have put up with since kindergarten. You called us names, excluded us from games, and now you expect us to be sweet. Oh yeah, now we looking good. Oh yeah, now you really need us, and sure, now you're trying to be nice. Well, it's too little, too late, so suffer, dog. This ain't elementary anymore. You in a brave new world. You're a boy in middle school. And Buster, I'm a... So get down on your knees and crawl, slime. Middle school is payback time. A boy anonymously answers that poem with a really chauvinist poem. That she says when she sees me, her heart starts to quicken, but all I can think of is crispy fried chicken. And he ends up, so if, as you say, you really do need me, stop talking about it. Just get up and feed me. We'll skip that poem. So I started writing poems in the voice of children. And what I was doing was without realizing it, in all of my poems there's conflict, there's emotion, and the play therapist, the psychologist explained to me what I didn't know. And they said, what you're doing is you're writing poems in the voice of real children about their real feelings. And when you act out real feelings that are a problem, you give the feeling a name, you act it out, and you laugh at yourself. We call it play therapy. It helps children become stronger. It helps people become stronger. You guys enjoy the special ones because it involves real emotions, and you act that poem and you laugh at yourself, and you become a little stronger. This is not going to solve all your problems and make life great. Just one little thing that helps you become a little stronger, you know. And the same thing works with children. Then I started, and I don't write for nice children, I write for real children. So the children, you know, I just skipped a poem about a kid who won't share pizza and he can't eat so much he can't get out of the chair. It ends with, you know, won't someone teach me how to share? Then this poem came along, The Food Cheer. This is a really simple poem. Carnivores, carnivores, we eat meat. Herbivores, herbivores, plants taste sweet. Omnivores, omnivores, hear us sing. We eat almost everything. So a few years ago, I got a telephone call while I'd just given a talk and I was signing books in a bookstore booth and at a conference. And I got this phone call, and it's from Mrs. Barker, Mrs. Barker from the poem, who had become the resource teacher at our school. And she taught all the kids, and she uses a lot of my poetry, and she uses this poem to teach them about Carnival Zone. And this is a school, by the way, that is, you know, it's one of those totally, completely, almost 100% failing schools, according to the way people measure schools with testing. This is a town that irresponsibly has stacked the deck so that all of the problem and difficult students, all of the challenging students are in one of the 4 schools, and they don't care what happens to them. It's one of the ugliest things I've ever seen. The teachers in that school are the most dedicated, unselfish, self-giving, determined, perseverant human beings I've ever seen in my life. You know, we all love and respect and acknowledge the great service soldiers do for us in the battlefield. These women in this classroom give their lives for these children with nothing in return. Nothing but a lot of bad feedback from their community because they don't get good test scores. In any event, she calls me and she said, she's laughing. She says, the children are taking their standardized test. And not one child has failed the question on herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. And the teachers are all laughing out loud because every time they get to that question, every day watch for a child, they know when they got to that question because they see the child go, omnivores, omnivores, wait, wait. And the point is, this is a great way to learn. And so teachers started saying, we want more, we want more, we want more. So I started doing a thing. Actually, I skipped a piece. This is going to be really tricky. Let me see if this is going to work. I hope it does. Come on, dog. Where'd you go? I've already seen I just lost a download. I hit the wrong thing? Oh, no. I have this rubric. Let's see, maybe I'll go back here. Yes, it worked. All right. This is the one I want to show you. Okay, so ignore that man behind the screen. I'm the great and powerful Oz. Is that it? No. How do I do this? Why? Anyhow, this thing says we remember 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, 50% of what we hear and see, 70% of what we say, and 90% of what we say and do. So I'd add something to that. I'd add when we say and do something in a dramatic context where we have become the character. All right, remember you saw the fish in the beginning? There was a picture of me with my grandson holding out a fish. We jumping around, right? I'm so sorry. But the idea of that is that that child now knows what a fish is because he touched it. He saw it and he touched it. He touched the fish. Now, short of touching a fish, short of that actual experience, which as we all know is the best teacher, the second best teacher is dramatic vicarious experience. That is, when you experience something in a dramatic context, where you're reading a novel and you have, because your imagination has had you place your identity in the protagonist of the novel, the things that happen to the protagonist are in your imagination happening to you. So you're having vicarious imaginative experience. And when you combine, and that's a very, very powerful way to learn. And when you combine that with actually not only reading it and identifying it, but physically becoming, saying it, hearing yourself saying it, feeling yourself saying it, emotionally becoming the emotions of the character, you know, it's even that much more powerful. So it occurred to me, based on this carnivores, if I could write poems that had the same qualities as the stuff I was doing for the first half of my life. That is, writing poems in the voice of children about their real feelings that they could act out and love poetry and have to become emotionally strong and all that. If I could add to that another layer of having content, that this would be really cool. That this would be a great way to give you guys a way of teaching children in the classroom that was really entertaining. Now, this is not a new idea. This was the foundation for whole language, which hit the dust like a, boom, total crash. And I remember at the time, I was around in those days, I was appalled that I didn't have poems that had enough content in them for teachers. And I had some, and they loved them, but they'd have to go through all my books to go find the 1 or 2 poems that had content in them, and that's a whole language teacher going all over the place trying to find content to teach their children, and it wasn't there. The point is, whether or not whole language is the best way to teach, the fact of the matter is that even if it is, that the content wasn't there for you guys. There's a, I think I have this here. Oh man, come on, Brody. Come on, baby. I'm gonna find it. Here it is. So, nope. That's not it. Just give me 1 second. Play therapy, content. Yeah, okay. Dr. Willie Wood writes a book called The Rock and Roll Classroom, and he's talking about song lyrics in this, but this equally applies to any content literature and content poems. And he says there's level 1 content lyrics, and those that introduce the subject but have very little actual content. Level 2 would be lyrics that contain some content but require a lot of supplemental material. And level 3 would be lyrics that are content complete and require almost no supplemental material, right? So there's lots of level 1 stuff. There's almost no level 2, and the times where you can find level 3 content literature where you actually teach the stuff are really, really rare. So my hope was, like 15 years ago, I said, I'm going to start writing this stuff. And this was the bad time to do it because the world had passed content literature by, and we were right in the beginning of No Child Left Behind. And so I was like going one way and the world went the other way. And I said, well, I've been here before. This is what I think is the right thing to do with my life. And I'm going to do it. And I'm going to fail quietly all by myself in the desert, right? so I started doing it. And let's see. No, I won't find it that way. So, content literature. Digestive system, 4th grade, digestion, various systems of the body. Digestive system's one of the systems, endocrine systems, cardiovascular system. The name of my poem is The Cookie Journey. I'm just a cookie on a plate, awaiting every cookie's fate. Someone bit me. Oh, the fear. Holy smoke, it's dark in here. Tooth enamel sharp and white. Left and right. Saliva swishing all around. Oh no, I think I'm going down. This esophagus is a very tight space. It starts in the neck right under the face. Immediately, the kind of hose that deep into a stomach goes. Feel the acid, feel the burn. The stomach has begun to churn. I'm turning to liquid. I'm turning to gas. Digestion progression is terribly fast. I'm flowing now in a gooey soup through small intestines, loop-de-loop. Now large intestines, the colon. At last, I'm turning back to solid mass. But something has begun to smash. And now I'm falling, splash. I'm floating in a big white well. Oh, disgusting. What's that smell? It's what our bodies love to do, turning cookies into So here's my belief. My belief is that there are children in your classrooms who don't like going to school. Some of them don't like going to school for a whole bunch of different reasons. There's some children there who just have to be moving. There's some children who have to have the attention of everybody else and will do anything they can to get it. There's some children who are not quiet learners. Most of those, by the way, tend to be boys. And as difficult as it is, it turns out that there's a lot of brain research in the last 10 years to support that. Boys need to learn in a kinesthetic, active way. A lot of girls too. There are a lot of what they call crossover brains. But if you have a boy in your classroom who drives you crazy, who won't pay attention, he'll do anything to disrupt your classroom, give him that poem to recite. Make him learn it, make him memorize it, and let him get up in front of the classroom and entertain everybody, and he will love it, and he will pass the test on digestion. He will know the material, he will know the vocabulary, he'll know the functionality, and he'll understand the system. He'll understand exactly how it works. And he'll teach your class for you. And so rather than trying to struggle and shut him up, you let him go and he teaches your class for you. On the other hand, especially in science, it turns out that girls tend to be much more verbal than boys. And so now, rather than having girls deal with just concepts and the boys who are the same way, you give them stuff that they can verbalize, so they can learn science by verbalizing. So both ends of the gender problem, both ends of the behavior issues get dealt with when you give children poetry or monologues or dialogues or plays that they can recite and be emotional and be theatrical and be physical and hear themselves say and learn as they're saying and entertain themselves, you and your classroom, and learn at the same time. So the idea was to create a body of work that would do that. And remember, this is at a time when everybody was going one way and I was going the other way into the desert, right? There's a little arrogance in that, like, I was right all along. I had no idea it was going to work out this way. I really didn't. I really feel like the world is turning back this way now. I just really believed in you. I believed in what you needed. And I had spent my life being a politician who essentially made a living by not telling people the truth, but by telling them what they wanted to hear in a way that sounded like it was true. And I got out of that because I couldn't live like that anymore. And I said, well, I'm not going to get out of that into this and then do the same thing here, So the bottom line is I started writing this stuff. And as it turns out, I'm almost finished science. And I mean carnivores and herbivores to the uniform field theory in quantum physics. The whole thing. I got like 240 pieces written. Now, let me just do a little quick bit of business. I send out these poems in batches. I've sent out 9 batches. About a year since I've sent out a batch. I had some other projects come up, and I had to put it in the back burner. But you can get the first 9 batches for free. All you have to do is send an email to Muse Project at broadbagert.com. Muse, because by receiving them, teachers continue to motivate me to write them. So I'm not just writing all by myself in a vacuum. I'm writing them for teachers that are receiving them and use them in their classroom, which motivates me to do it. So you send MuseProject at broadbagert.com. Put the word yes in the subject line. You get the first 9 batches for free. You get the license to use them for the rest of your teaching career and copy them for your students ad nauseum. This probably won't come out as individual books. I really want to put together an app where you can just put an app on your phone or your computer, type in a word, and get all the poems for all the grade levels and all the backup material that'll go along with it. And buy one thing rather than buying 50 books and having to search. Buy one thing that can teach science from kindergarten through high school, right? And so actually, if you, yes, ma'am. Repeat the thing. MuseProject, Muse Project, at broadbagert, BroadBagert.com, with the word yes in the subject line. And it's, if it's an electronic thing, I could sell it for $10, $15, And I'm not going to get rich, but I'm too old to worry about getting rich anyway. So let me just show you what some of the poems are like. One of the things you want to teach in scientific method is you want to teach that science is not a fixed and a static thing. So knowledge in motion. This, of course, works particularly well for motion because it alludes to Newton, who was the author of the 3 laws of motion. Knowledge in motion. Newton declares a magnificent notion that 3 basic laws govern objects in motion. This giant idea was the ultimate thing, and for almost 3 centuries, Newton was king. Then Einstein declared, it's important to know, that these laws only work when the motion is slow. But when speeds start approaching the swiftness of light, the laws of Sir Isaac are no longer right, which is exactly correct, by the way. You know, as an object begins to approach the speed of light, time relative to the object slows down, the mass of the object increases, and the length of the object in the direction of motion decreases, all of which is totally unintuitive. So you see how our knowledge keeps inching along? It seems perfect today, but tomorrow it's wrong. And who will be next to propose something new? First Newton, then Einstein, and next, maybe you. So the idea is to teach your children and to inspire them at the same time. And that can lead to a whole conversation about scientific method. Real monsters, and this is for younger children. And again, let's see. So the underlying principle here is not only that you can see things in microscopes, but that scientific discovery is often a function of the technology that permits observation or a measurement. So you could do all the theoretical science you wanted. Nobody was ever going to come up with microbial life until they invented a microscope. Let's see. Now let me do it from here. I'm going to just do part of this. There's no such thing as monsters. Please don't believe that lie. I promise you I've seen them. They're as real as you and I. The sign of a spiny assassin bug will fill you with dismay, all covered with spikes and poisonous tubes. It sticks it to its prey, and it goes up to the end, and it concludes with, monsters? Monsters don't exist? It's a big, fat, dirty lie. I saw them in a microscope, as real as you or I. And then they have these wonderful pictures of all these disgusting things. These are the spring. These are all the different kinds of weather that accurately describe the weather. This is a sort of an existential poem about being lost in space. That's one of my favorites. This is about mass. The 4-force quartet. I'm just to do a part of this. And now, so the holy grail of scientists is to find the uniform field theory, the uniform force theory, that combines electromagnetic force with gravity, with the weak force and the strong force. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the annual Hard Rock Science Festival is proud to present the one, the only, the fabulous 4-chord quartet, playing that old familiar friend of humankind. I give you the way down low himself, gravity. And gravity said, if it weren't for me, there'd be no such thing as jumping up and down. I hold the air like a blanket around you. I keep your feet on the ground. I hold Earth and Moon in orbit, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. I'm the master of the planets. I'm master of the stars. And then the announcer introduces all of them. There's another carnivore thing for older kids. This is about different parts of the sea. Skeleton. There's a skeleton in my bed. It's quiet as can be, and it sleeps there, and we sleep together every night. It's just, take two. I'm rushing too much. Actually, I'm gonna have to skip that. I don't have time to do all these. I'm so sorry. You can get them for free. So here's the point. I'll invite you to get these poems and to use them, and to give me feedback, and let me know what works for you, and to let me know what's not working for you. And if there's something there that you don't have that you think you need, let me know that you need it. This has been a wonderful resource for me because it's not only motivated me, but it's to write because people are using them. And I know that I'm not just in a room by myself with this pipe dream, but it's also helped because the responses in the direction of teachers have helped keep me functioning in a directions that are useful to you as a practical matter. I apologize for jumping all around and being as quick as that, and I want to leave you guys with a poem. But before I do, let me just tell you this. I can't believe I get to do this. You know, Sunday's my birthday. I'll be 68 years old. You know, I'm 68 nowadays is not all that old, but I'm not going to be around forever anymore, and I know it, you know. 10 years of really active, full energy, maybe, you know, and you start thinking differently. You start thinking, I'm on the other end of this deal, you know. I'm winding down. And you look back on your life, and I can tell you, when I look back on my life, you know, sure, I wasted my time on a bunch of stuff and had a bunch of regrets and stuff, But I wouldn't change a thing because I get to end up being here. Now, I'm not big and famous and wealthy, you know, and I'm not like a star. I'm just a children's author and a kind of a mid-level children's author at that, you know. I think I wouldn't trade my work for anybody in the world, you know. But it's not anything that's going to pump up my ego or anything because I'm just a mid-level children's author, right? I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world because I get to be a part of your work. I get to be part of your work, and by virtue of giving you something that might be just a little bit extra help to you, a little bit support for you, to produce a little bit success for you, maybe with 1 or 2 children, you know. My life has value, and my work has value. And I think, you know, what if I die? I'm going to Egypt Monday, you know, so I keep thinking, you know, what if they blow me up? You know, and, that would be terrible. But if they blow me up, I want you to tell my friends I died a guy who really, really was happy with where he was in his life because I get to be a part of your work. And I'm going to leave you guys with a poem. This is one of my favorite poems. I wrote it when I was thinking about my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Toops, who planted poetry in my heart, and how much I wanted to pick up the phone and tell her thank you. But she had died a long time before I got to this point. So this is in honor of Mrs. Toops and to you. The answer machine. She sat in the edge of a one-woman king-size bed and wondered if she could face another day. 27 years in the classroom. She tried not to think about it. She tried not to remember those first-year teacher dreams she saved like petals from a prom corsage. But now her tomorrows were heartbeats in a restless sleep, and dreams didn't matter anymore. So with a sigh nobody else could hear, she readied pad and pencil and pressed the playback button in her answer machine. Hello, Ms. Stevenson, this is Charlie McWhite. You probably don't remember me, but you taught me in the 2nd grade. I was the kid who still couldn't read. Well, I was thinking of you last night. I was reading Brown Bear to my little girl, and it was strange. It was me saying the words, but I kept hearing your voice in my head. All these years, and your voice is still in my head. Well, I hope I didn't bother you, but I called to say you were right. I did go to college, and I did just fine. And I wanted to say thank you. Thanks for everything. She sat in the edge of a one-woman king-size bed, put pad and pencil down, and smiled. 27 years in a classroom. Children, what do you see? I see a teacher looking at me. I love you guys. Thank you for the chance to be part of your work, and thank you for everything you do.